Welcome everyone. Imagine you're standing in the cereal aisle of your local supermarket. You just want something simple for breakfast. But instead of finding a few options, you're facing an entire wall of choices. 50 different cereals. Maybe 100. Some promise health benefits. Others offer nostalgia. Some are organic, gluten-free, sugar-free, or packed with protein. You came in thinking this would take 2 minutes. Now you've been standing here for 15. Your brain feels tired. You start questioning everything. What if you choose the wrong one? What if there's a better option you're missing? Finally, you grab something randomly, pay, and leave. But here's the strange part, you don't feel satisfied. You feel exhausted and somehow disappointed. This isn't just about cereal. This is about your entire life. Today, we're exploring one of the most important philosophical ideas of our modern age. It's called the paradox of choice, and it reveals something shocking: having more options doesn't make us happier. In fact, it often makes us miserable. The philosopher Barry Schwartz spent years studying this phenomenon, and what he discovered challenges everything we believe about freedom and happiness. Let me give you the main idea in one simple sentence: when we have too many choices, we become paralyzed, anxious, and less satisfied with whatever we eventually choose. This sounds crazy, right? We live in a world that celebrates freedom. We're told that more options equal more freedom, and more freedom equals more happiness. Every advertisement promises us another choice. Every app offers unlimited possibilities. We can choose from thousands of movies, millions of songs, countless potential romantic partners, infinite career paths. But something feels wrong. Despite having more choices than any generation in human history, we're not happier. We're more anxious. More depressed. More paralyzed by indecision. We lie awake at night wondering if we made the right choices. We scroll endlessly through options without ever feeling satisfied. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this paradox. A researcher set up a table at a grocery store offering free samples of jam. On some days, the table displayed 6 varieties. On other days, it displayed 24 varieties. Here's what happened: when there were 24 jams, more people stopped to look. It seemed more attractive. More exciting. But when researchers tracked actual purchases, something surprising emerged. Only 3% of people who saw 24 jams actually bought any. But 30% of people who saw just 6 jams made a purchase. That's 10 times more actual buying. The abundance of choice didn't create more sales. It created paralysis. People became overwhelmed and walked away buying nothing. This jam study reveals something profound about human psychology. Our brains didn't evolve to handle unlimited options. For most of human history, we had relatively few choices. You ate what grew nearby. You married someone from your village. You did the work your family did. This sounds limiting, but it had an unexpected benefit: people spent less mental energy on decisions and more energy on actually living. Now let's dive deeper into why too many choices make us unhappy. First, there's the problem of opportunity cost. This is a term economists use, but the concept is simple: when you choose one thing, you give up all the other things you could have chosen. When you only have 2 options, this isn't so painful. But when you have 50 options, choosing one means rejecting 49 others. Each of those rejected options haunts you. Imagine you're scrolling through a streaming service trying to pick a movie. You have thousands of options. You finally choose one after 30 minutes of browsing. But while you're watching it, part of your brain keeps wondering, what about all those other movies? Maybe one of them would have been better. Maybe I'm wasting my time with this one. This thought process ruins your enjoyment of what you're actually watching. The same thing happens with bigger life choices. You choose a career, but you wonder about the paths you didn't take. You choose a place to live, but you imagine how life might be better somewhere else. You choose a romantic partner, but you wonder about all the people you might have met if you'd kept looking. This constant wondering prevents you from fully committing to and enjoying your actual choices. Second, there's the problem of escalating expectations. When you have limited choices, your expectations are modest. If there are only 3 restaurants in your town, you don't expect any of them to be perfect. You accept their flaws. You enjoy what they do well. But when you have 300 restaurants available through delivery apps, your expectations skyrocket. You expect the perfect meal, the perfect service, the perfect value. This creates a trap. No matter what you choose, it's unlikely to meet your inflated expectations. Even if the food is objectively good, you feel disappointed because it wasn't the transcendent experience you imagined. You blame yourself for choosing poorly. You feel like a failure at something as simple as ordering dinner. Third, there's the problem of self-blame. In a world of limited choices, if something goes wrong, you can blame circumstances. You can blame bad luck. But in a world of unlimited choices, if something goes wrong, who can you blame? Only yourself. You had every option available. If you're unhappy, it must be because you chose poorly. This creates enormous psychological pressure. Every decision becomes a test of your judgment. Every outcome becomes a reflection of your wisdom or foolishness. You can't just live your life. You have to constantly evaluate whether you're making optimal choices. This is exhausting. Let me give you a modern example that everyone can relate to: choosing a romantic partner through dating apps. 50 years ago, most people met their partners through school, work, or friends. Your pool of potential partners was maybe a few dozen people. You picked someone you liked, got to know them, and decided whether to commit. The process was relatively simple. Once you committed, you focused on building the relationship rather than wondering about alternatives. Now, open a dating app. You have access to thousands of potential partners. You can sort them by height, education, interests, location. You can swipe through hundreds of profiles in an hour. This seems like it should make finding a good partner easier. But does it? Many people report the opposite experience. They become paralyzed by options. They go on dates but constantly wonder if someone better is just one more swipe away. They struggle to commit because commitment means closing off other possibilities. They develop what some researchers call a shopping mentality, where they evaluate human beings like products, always looking for upgrades. Even when they find someone wonderful, they can't fully enjoy it. They wonder if they settled. They wonder if they should have kept looking. The abundance of choice doesn't lead to better relationships. It leads to chronic dissatisfaction and inability to commit. Barry Schwartz identified 2 types of people when it comes to making choices: maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers are people who always want to make the best possible choice. They research extensively. They compare every option. They read all the reviews. They agonize over decisions. They want to optimize everything. In a world of limited choices, this strategy might work. But in a world of unlimited choices, maximizers are doomed to misery. Why? Because in a world of infinite options, you can never be sure you found the best one. There's always one more option to consider. One more review to read. One more possibility to explore. Maximizers spend enormous amounts of time and mental energy on decisions, and even after they finally choose, they're plagued by doubt. They wonder if they missed something. They notice the flaws in what they chose. They feel regret. Satisficers, on the other hand, have a different approach. The word satisficer combines satisfy and suffice. Satisficers have criteria for what's good enough, and once they find something that meets those criteria, they stop looking. They don't need the best. They need good enough. This might sound like settling, but research shows that satisficers are actually happier than maximizers. Here's why: satisficers make decisions faster with less stress. Once they choose, they commit to their choice and focus on enjoying it rather than second-guessing it. They don't waste mental energy wondering if there's something better out there. They appreciate what they have. They experience more satisfaction with objectively similar outcomes simply because their expectations are more realistic and they're not constantly comparing their choice to alternatives. Let me give you another example from everyday life: choosing what to wear. Some highly successful people wear essentially the same outfit every day. Steve Jobs famously wore a black turtleneck and jeans. Mark Zuckerberg wears a gray t-shirt. Barack Obama rotated between only 2 suit colors. These people could afford any clothes they wanted. They had unlimited options. So why did they limit themselves? Because they understood the paradox of choice. Every decision you make, no matter how small, uses mental energy. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. Your brain has a limited capacity for making decisions each day. If you waste that capacity on trivial choices like what to wear or what to eat for breakfast, you have less mental energy left for important decisions. By eliminating unnecessary choices from their daily routine, these successful people preserved their mental energy for decisions that actually mattered. They became satisficers about clothing so they could be more effective at their real work. This wasn't laziness. It was wisdom. Now let's talk about how the paradox of choice affects your sense of freedom. We tend to think that more choices equal more freedom. This seems logically obvious. If you can choose from 100 options instead of 10, you're more free, right? But Schwartz argues that beyond a certain point, more choices don't increase freedom. They decrease it. Think about it this way: freedom isn't just about having options available. It's about your ability to actually choose and act. When you're paralyzed by too many options, when you're overwhelmed by decision fatigue, when you're so anxious about making the wrong choice that you can't choose at all, are you really free? Or are you trapped by your own abundance of options? Imagine you're trying to choose a career path. In previous generations, your options were limited by your circumstances, education, and location. This was constraining, yes, but it also provided clarity. You had a smaller set of paths to consider. You could evaluate them, choose one, and commit to it. Today, you're told you can be anything. The world is full of possibilities. You can retrain for new careers at any age. You can work remotely from anywhere. You can create your own job that didn't exist before. This sounds liberating, but for many people, it's paralyzing. How do you choose when anything is possible? How do you commit when you could always pivot to something else? The infinite possibilities don't feel like freedom. They feel like a burden. This leads to what some researchers call the tyranny of choice. Instead of choices serving you, you serve your choices. You spend your life managing options, comparing alternatives, second-guessing decisions, and wondering about paths not taken. Your choices don't liberate you. They imprison you in a cycle of perpetual evaluation and dissatisfaction. Let's explore how this affects your happiness on a deeper level. Psychologists have found that happiness comes largely from appreciation and gratitude. When you appreciate what you have, when you feel grateful for your circumstances, you experience well-being. But the paradox of choice undermines appreciation. When you're constantly aware of alternatives, when you're always comparing your choice to other options, you can't fully appreciate what you have. Think about buying a new phone. 20 years ago, when there were only a few models available, you bought one and felt satisfied. You appreciated its features. You enjoyed using it. Now, with dozens of models at various price points with different features, you buy a phone and immediately start comparing it to alternatives. Maybe you should have spent more for better features. Maybe you overpaid for features you don't need. Maybe next month's model will be better. This comparison prevents you from simply enjoying your phone. The same dynamic applies to bigger life choices. You choose a home, but you browse real estate websites looking at other homes. You choose a job, but you scroll through job postings wondering if something better is available. You choose a life partner, but you notice attractive people and wonder what if. This constant comparison is poison to happiness. Barry Schwartz points out another crucial problem: the paradox of choice affects different people differently, and it's getting worse over time. Some people are naturally more prone to maximizing behavior. They're perfectionists. They have trouble accepting good enough. For these people, the modern abundance of choice is particularly toxic. They spend excessive time on decisions, experience high anxiety, and feel chronic dissatisfaction with their choices. They're objectively successful by external measures but subjectively miserable. Other people are more naturally satisficers. They're comfortable with good enough. They make decisions more easily and move on. But even satisficers are affected by the culture of unlimited choice. We're all bombarded with messages that we should optimize everything. That we should never settle. That there's always something better available if we just keep looking. This cultural pressure pushes even natural satisficers toward maximizing behavior. And the problem is accelerating. Technology has dramatically increased the number of choices available in almost every domain of life. Online shopping gives you access to millions of products. Streaming services offer unlimited entertainment. Social media connects you to billions of people. Dating apps present thousands of potential partners. Job websites list millions of opportunities. Our brains haven't evolved to handle this abundance. We're using Stone Age psychology to navigate Space Age choices. The result is epidemic levels of anxiety, depression, and dissatisfaction, even among people who have objectively good lives by historical standards. So what do we do about this? How do we escape the paradox of choice? Barry Schwartz offers several practical strategies. These aren't just theoretical ideas. They're concrete steps you can take today to reduce the negative effects of too many choices and increase your happiness. First, learn to be a satisficer instead of a maximizer. This is perhaps the most important shift you can make. Develop clear criteria for what's good enough in different areas of your life, and once you find something that meets those criteria, stop looking. Don't research endlessly. Don't compare obsessively. Don't seek the perfect option. Seek a good option, choose it, and commit to it. For example, if you're buying a new laptop, decide in advance what features you need and what price range is acceptable. Then find a laptop that meets those criteria and buy it. Don't spend weeks comparing every possible model. Don't read hundreds of reviews. Don't agonize over whether you're getting the absolute best value. Just buy a good laptop and move on with your life. This doesn't mean being careless or impulsive. It means being intentional about what matters and what doesn't. It means recognizing that the difference between a good choice and the perfect choice is often tiny, while the mental cost of seeking perfection is enormous. Second, consciously limit your options. This sounds counterintuitive in a culture that celebrates unlimited choice, but it's incredibly powerful. You don't have to consider every available option just because it exists. You can deliberately narrow your field of consideration. For instance, if you're choosing a restaurant for dinner, don't browse through every restaurant in your city. Pick 3 that you know are good and choose from those. If you're buying clothes, don't shop at every possible store. Pick 1 or 2 stores you trust and buy from them. If you're looking for a job, don't apply to hundreds of positions. Identify a handful that genuinely interest you and focus on those. By limiting your options in advance, you make decisions easier and less stressful. You also increase your satisfaction with whatever you choose because you're not haunted by all the alternatives you didn't consider. Third, make some decisions automatic or routine. Remember the example of successful people wearing the same outfit every day. You can apply this principle to many areas of life. Identify decisions that don't really matter and eliminate them through routines. Maybe you eat the same thing for breakfast every day. Maybe you shop at the same grocery store and buy mostly the same items. Maybe you have a standard gift you give for birthdays instead of agonizing over finding something unique each time. Maybe you have a regular exercise routine instead of constantly trying new workouts. These routines aren't boring. They're liberating. They free up mental energy for decisions that actually matter. They reduce decision fatigue. They create a foundation of stability that allows you to be more creative and spontaneous in areas where it counts. Fourth, practice gratitude for what you've chosen. Once you make a choice, commit to it psychologically. Focus on its positive aspects. Appreciate what it offers. Avoid comparing it to alternatives. Stop second-guessing yourself. This is a skill you can develop. When you notice yourself wondering if you made the right choice, consciously redirect your attention to the good aspects of your choice. If you chose a particular career, focus on what you enjoy about it rather than wondering about other paths. If you chose a place to live, appreciate its benefits rather than browsing real estate in other cities. This isn't about denying reality or refusing to make changes when something genuinely isn't working. It's about breaking the habit of chronic comparison and dissatisfaction. It's about being present with your actual life rather than constantly imagining alternative lives. Fifth, lower your expectations. Again, this sounds negative, but it's actually a path to greater happiness. When you expect perfection, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. When you expect good enough, you're often pleasantly surprised. This doesn't mean accepting mediocrity or giving up on excellence. It means recognizing that in a world of unlimited choices, no single choice will be perfect. Every option has trade-offs. Every decision involves giving up something. If you expect your choices to be flawless, you'll always be disappointed. If you expect them to be good with some flaws, you'll often be satisfied. Sixth, make choices irreversible when possible. This sounds extreme, but research shows that people are actually happier with irreversible choices than with reversible ones. Why? Because when a choice is irreversible, you stop evaluating it. You accept it and focus on making the best of it. But when a choice is reversible, you never fully commit. You keep one foot out the door. You keep evaluating whether to reverse your decision. Obviously, you can't and shouldn't make every choice irreversible. But in areas where you tend to second-guess yourself, consider whether you can add some commitment that makes the choice harder to reverse. This might mean buying something without the option to return it. It might mean making a public commitment to a decision. It might mean deliberately closing off alternatives. When you can't reverse a choice easily, you shift your mental energy from evaluating the choice to making it work. This leads to greater satisfaction and better outcomes. Seventh, choose when to choose. Not every decision deserves your full attention. Some choices matter a lot. Others barely matter at all. Learn to distinguish between them. Invest time and energy in important decisions. Make trivial decisions quickly with minimal thought. How do you know what's important? Ask yourself, will this decision significantly affect my life in a year? In 5 years? If the answer is no, it's probably not worth extensive deliberation. If you're choosing a career or a life partner, invest the time to choose well. If you're choosing a brand of paper towels, just grab something and move on. Many people do the opposite. They agonize over trivial consumer choices but make major life decisions impulsively. Reverse this pattern. Be thoughtful about what truly matters and relaxed about what doesn't. 8. Accept that some unhappiness is inevitable. This is perhaps the deepest wisdom in the paradox of choice. We live in a culture that suggests happiness is a choice, that if you're unhappy, you must be doing something wrong. But this creates enormous pressure. It suggests that if you just made better choices, you'd be happy all the time. This is a fantasy. Life involves suffering, disappointment, and difficulty regardless of your choices. Some unhappiness comes from external circumstances beyond your control. Some comes from the inherent limitations of being human. Accepting this is liberating. It means you can stop blaming yourself for not being perfectly happy. You can stop thinking that if you just made different choices, everything would be wonderful. This acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It means having realistic expectations about what choices can and cannot accomplish. Choices can improve your life. They cannot eliminate all problems or create perfect happiness. Now let's talk about how the paradox of choice relates to meaning and purpose. One of the deepest problems with unlimited choice is that it can make life feel arbitrary. When you have limited options, your path feels somewhat determined. You work with what's available. You make the best of your circumstances. There's a certain meaning in accepting your situation and doing well within it. But when anything is possible, when you can choose from unlimited options, your life feels like the result of arbitrary choices. Why did you choose this career instead of that one? Why did you choose this place to live instead of somewhere else? Why did you choose this partner instead of someone else? There are no external constraints forcing your choices, so they feel random. Meaningless. This creates what some philosophers call existential anxiety. It's the anxiety that comes from radical freedom, from the awareness that your life could have been completely different if you'd made different choices. This anxiety can be paralyzing. It can make your actual life feel less real, less meaningful, because you're so aware of all the alternative lives you could be living. The solution isn't to eliminate choice. That's neither possible nor desirable. The solution is to choose consciously and then create meaning through commitment. Once you make a choice, you create meaning by fully investing in it. You make it the right choice through your dedication to it. Think about choosing a career. You could spend your whole life wondering if you chose the right field, comparing your path to alternatives, imagining how things might be different. Or you could choose a direction, commit to it fully, develop your skills, build relationships, and create meaning through your dedication. The meaning doesn't come from making the objectively correct choice from unlimited options. It comes from committing to a choice and making something worthwhile from it. The same applies to relationships. You could spend your life wondering if there's someone better out there, someone more compatible, more attractive, more successful. Or you could choose a partner, commit fully to the relationship, work through difficulties together, and create a meaningful bond through shared experiences and mutual dedication. The meaning comes from the commitment, not from having chosen the perfect person from an infinite pool. This is a profound shift in how we think about choice and meaning. Modern culture suggests that meaning comes from making the right choices, from optimizing your life, from finding the perfect fit in every domain. But this is backwards. Meaning comes from commitment, from taking your choices seriously, from building something worthwhile with whatever you've chosen. Let's explore how this applies to your relationship with technology and social media. Social media dramatically amplifies the paradox of choice. It exposes you to infinite possibilities for how to live, what to value, who to be. You scroll through feeds seeing people who are more successful, more attractive, more adventurous, more creative, more everything. Each image represents a path you're not taking, a life you're not living, a choice you didn't make. This creates what researchers call fear of missing out, or FOMO. It's the anxiety that comes from being constantly aware of alternatives. While you're at home, someone else is at an exciting party. While you're working your job, someone else is traveling the world. While you're in your relationship, someone else is having passionate romance. The awareness of these alternatives makes it impossible to be fully present and satisfied with your actual life. The solution isn't necessarily to quit social media entirely, though that works for some people. The solution is to consciously limit your exposure to alternatives. Curate your feeds carefully. Unfollow accounts that make you feel inadequate or envious. Limit your time scrolling. Remember that what you see on social media is a highlight reel, not reality. More fundamentally, practice being present with your actual life instead of constantly comparing it to alternatives. When you're with friends, be fully there instead of thinking about other things you could be doing. When you're working, engage with the work instead of daydreaming about other careers. When you're alone, appreciate the solitude instead of feeling like you should be somewhere more exciting. This presence is a skill. It takes practice. But it's essential for escaping the paradox of choice. You can't be happy if you're always somewhere else mentally, always comparing your reality to alternatives. Now let's discuss how the paradox of choice affects your sense of responsibility and autonomy. In a world of limited choices, you can attribute your circumstances partly to luck, partly to external factors. You didn't have complete control over your life. This limited responsibility can actually be comforting. If things go wrong, it's not entirely your fault. But in a world of unlimited choices, you bear full responsibility for your life. If you're unhappy, it's because you made poor choices. If you're unsuccessful, it's because you didn't choose wisely. If your relationships fail, it's because you chose the wrong people. This total responsibility is crushing. Barry Schwartz points out that this creates a paradox. We think we want complete autonomy, complete control over our choices. But when we have it, the weight of responsibility becomes unbearable. We're paralyzed by the fear of making wrong choices. We're crushed by guilt when things go badly. The solution is to recognize that even in a world of abundant choices, you don't have complete control. External factors still matter. Luck still plays a role. Other people's choices affect your life. You're not omnipotent. You can't optimize everything. Some things will go wrong regardless of how carefully you choose. This recognition is liberating. It allows you to take your choices seriously without being paralyzed by them. You can do your best to choose wisely while accepting that outcomes aren't entirely in your control. You can take responsibility for your choices without taking total responsibility for every aspect of your life. Let me share some research about how different cultures handle choice. Interestingly, the paradox of choice is most severe in Western, individualistic cultures, particularly in the United States. These cultures emphasize individual autonomy, personal choice, and self-determination. They teach that you should choose your own path, that you're responsible for your own happiness, that you can be whatever you want. Other cultures, particularly more collectivist cultures in Asia and other parts of the world, have different approaches. They emphasize duty, tradition, and social roles more than individual choice. They provide more guidance about what you should do. They limit choices in some domains. Western observers often view this as limiting freedom. But research shows that people in these cultures don't necessarily feel less free or less happy. In some cases, they report greater satisfaction. Why? Because they're less burdened by the weight of unlimited choice. They have clearer paths. They can focus on executing their roles well rather than constantly evaluating whether they chose the right role. This doesn't mean we should abandon individual choice or return to rigid traditional roles. But it suggests that some amount of structure, guidance, and limitation can actually enhance well-being. Complete freedom isn't always optimal. Sometimes constraints are helpful. Think about creativity. Artists often report that constraints enhance creativity rather than limiting it. If you can paint anything with any materials in any style, you might be paralyzed. But if you're told to paint a portrait using only blue paint, the constraint focuses your creativity. It eliminates endless possibilities and allows you to work deeply within defined boundaries. The same principle applies to life. Some constraints on your choices can actually enhance your ability to live well. The key is finding the right balance between freedom and structure, between openness and commitment. Let's explore one more crucial aspect: how the paradox of choice affects your relationships. Relationships require commitment. They require accepting another person with all their flaws. They require working through difficulties. They require staying when things get hard. But the paradox of choice undermines all of this. When you're aware of unlimited alternatives, commitment becomes difficult. Why commit to this person when there might be someone better? Why work through difficulties when you could just find someone else? Why accept flaws when you could keep searching for someone more perfect? This mentality is destroying relationships. People treat partners like consumer products, always evaluating whether to upgrade. They maintain one foot out the door, ready to leave if something better comes along. They compare their real relationship with its real difficulties to imaginary perfect relationships. This makes deep connection impossible. The solution is to consciously reject this consumer mentality in relationships. Recognize that no partner will be perfect. Every relationship involves compromise and difficulty. The depth and meaning in relationships come from commitment, from choosing to stay and work through problems, from accepting another person fully. This doesn't mean staying in genuinely bad relationships. It means not abandoning good relationships just because they're not perfect or because you imagine something better might be available. It means understanding that the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. Once you commit to a relationship, stop comparing your partner to alternatives. Stop imagining how things might be different with someone else. Invest in the relationship you have. Appreciate your partner's positive qualities. Accept their flaws as you'd want them to accept yours. Build something meaningful through shared experience and mutual dedication. This same principle applies to friendships, family relationships, and community connections. Deep relationships require commitment. Commitment requires closing off alternatives. In a world of unlimited choice, this feels risky. But it's the only path to genuine connection. Now let's bring all of this together with some practical wisdom you can apply today. The paradox of choice isn't just an abstract philosophical idea. It's affecting your daily life right now. Every time you scroll endlessly through options without choosing. Every time you make a choice and immediately regret it. Every time you feel paralyzed by possibilities. Every time you compare your life to alternatives and feel dissatisfied. You're experiencing the paradox of choice. But you're not powerless. You can make changes today that will reduce the negative effects of too many choices and increase your happiness and satisfaction. Start by identifying one area of your life where you're suffering from choice overload. Maybe it's what to watch on streaming services. Maybe it's what to eat for meals. Maybe it's shopping for clothes. Maybe it's job searching. Maybe it's dating. Pick one area where you feel paralyzed or chronically dissatisfied. In that area, implement one strategy we've discussed. Maybe you limit your options in advance. Maybe you develop clear good enough criteria and become a satisficer. Maybe you create a routine that eliminates the need to choose. Maybe you commit to appreciating what you have instead of comparing it to alternatives. Start small. Don't try to revolutionize your entire life at once. Make one change in one area. See how it feels. Notice whether you experience less stress and more satisfaction. Then gradually extend the practice to other areas. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all choices. Choice is valuable. Freedom is important. The goal is to escape the tyranny of unlimited choice. To reclaim your mental energy from endless evaluation and comparison. To find satisfaction through commitment rather than optimization. Here's a powerful practice you can start today. When you make a choice, any choice, practice commitment. Once you decide, stop researching. Stop comparing. Stop second-guessing. Tell yourself, I've made my choice. Now I'll focus on making the best of it. I'll appreciate its good aspects. I'll accept its limitations. I'll invest in making this choice work rather than wondering about alternatives. This simple practice can transform your relationship with choice. It shifts you from chronic evaluation mode to appreciation mode. It allows you to be present with your actual life instead of constantly imagining alternative lives. Another practice, once a week, consciously appreciate something you've chosen. Your home. Your job. Your partner. Your friends. Your city. Don't focus on what's wrong with it or how it could be better. Don't compare it to alternatives. Just appreciate what's good about it. Feel genuine gratitude for having it. This gratitude practice counteracts the comparison mentality that the paradox of choice creates. It trains your brain to appreciate what you have rather than constantly seeking something better. One more practice, regularly disconnect from sources of choice overload. Take breaks from social media. Stop browsing shopping sites. Avoid constantly researching and comparing. Give your brain rest from the endless evaluation of options. Use that mental energy for actually living instead of constantly choosing how to live. The paradox of choice reveals a profound truth about human happiness: more isn't always better. Beyond a certain point, more choices create more problems. They paralyze us. They exhaust us. They prevent us from appreciating what we have. They make commitment difficult. They create chronic dissatisfaction. But this isn't a tragedy. It's an opportunity. Once you understand the paradox of choice, you can consciously design your life to minimize its negative effects. You can choose when to choose and when to accept. You can limit options deliberately. You can practice satisfaction instead of optimization. You can commit to your choices instead of constantly second-guessing them. This is the path to greater happiness in a world of unlimited options. Not through having more choices, but through choosing wisely from fewer options and then fully committing to what you've chosen. Not through constant optimization, but through appreciation and gratitude. Not through keeping all possibilities open, but through the freedom that comes from commitment. Barry Schwartz's work on the paradox of choice offers us a roadmap for navigating modern life. It explains why we feel so anxious and dissatisfied despite having more options than any previous generation. And it shows us a way forward, not by rejecting choice, but by choosing more wisely and committing more fully. The question isn't whether you should have choices. The question is how many choices you need to live well, and how to handle the choices you have. The answer for most of us is, fewer choices than we currently face, handled with more commitment and less second-guessing. This might seem like a limitation. But it's actually liberation. Liberation from the exhausting burden of unlimited options. Liberation from chronic comparison and dissatisfaction. Liberation from the paralysis of perfectionism. Liberation to actually live your life instead of constantly evaluating whether you're living it optimally. So here's your practical application for today: choose one area of your life where you'll deliberately limit your options. Maybe you'll shop at only one grocery store instead of comparing prices across multiple stores. Maybe you'll choose 3 streaming services instead of subscribing to everything. Maybe you'll commit to your current job for a year instead of constantly browsing job postings. Maybe you'll delete dating apps and focus on meeting people through activities you enjoy. Whatever you choose, make it concrete and specific. Write it down. Commit to it for a defined period, maybe a month. Then notice what happens. Notice whether you feel less stressed. Notice whether you make decisions more easily. Notice whether you appreciate what you have more fully. Notice whether you feel more satisfied with your choices. This isn't about limiting your freedom. It's about reclaiming it. True freedom isn't having unlimited options. It's having the clarity and commitment to choose well from good options and then fully invest in what you've chosen. That's the wisdom hidden in the paradox of choice. Less can truly bring more joy.